So let's just get started. Hey, everyone. As you can see, our guest speaker tonight is Ross. He is the principal and creative director at Becoming Design Office, located in Victoria, BC. His work has been recognized by international award shows, publications, and institutions. He's very involved in the design community and is one of the great volunteers for the RGD. So welcome, Ross.
Thank you so much for having me. I can see that it's definitely nighttime in Toronto. I don't know if you guys can hear, I've got a skylight above me and the rain is pelting down. We have a brand new vernacular these days, this thing called the atmospheric river. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it keeps on hitting us out here in BC. So the atmospheric river is definitely in full effect right now. But anyway, yeah, so I guess would you like me to just sort of jump in and share my screen? Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to the student committee. I have a talk that I've actually been delivering to students that I've been modifying over the years as really my career evolves and changes. And it has sort of a subtext around self-promotion. So tonight's talk is really sort of a combination of my story, leaving school, getting into the profession, and what role self-promotion played in that journey. So I guess I will just share my screen here and get started. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Fantastic. So, like I said, my name is Ross. Thank you very much for the lovely intro there. It's a pleasure to be chatting to you guys tonight. As I said, I've got this talk on self-promotion I'd love to share with you. And it really just kind of, I guess, gives you a little bit of background about me, what my history is as far as design school and getting out into the profession. So as was mentioned, 2 years ago, actually I founded Becoming Design Office. That was after about an 8-year stint of working as an independent and then a host of other studio experiences that I'll share with you shortly. So maybe just give you a little bit more information about Becoming. Becoming is really sort of manifestation of my entire career as a professional designer. And this is a picture of our office. You can see Zairi there is one of our designers, is helping me paint a wall in our kind of entranceway. It says, wash your hands. We figured, you know, this was like right in the middle of COVID, but we thought it would probably be kind of a timeless message going forward. So it's still up there right now. The reason I'm showing you this is because, you know, one of the hallmarks of our studio, as much as we do a lot of digital design, we do a lot of brand development and stuff like that, we really pride ourselves on keeping art and working with real materials as sort of like the central aspect of our approach. So whenever possible, we try to include some kind of physical material. And actually, we just worked on the visual identity for the student awards, which you may or may not have seen, and actually created that all using spray paint and stuff like that to create the brand graphics. So you also kind of get a little bit of a sense of our studio there. Oops. There we go. So my introduction to design started out here in British Columbia, where I grew up. I took an Interdisciplinary Design Studies course at Kwantlen University College, which is kind of growing into a more substantial design school these days. It was a foundation that really gave me a broad look into what, you know, applied design and to a certain degree like fine art was all about, because previous to my design career I was in marketing and special events and stuff like that, so always had a creative sort of side to me but never really knew how to get into it. So that course at Kwantlen really helped me get into it. And after my foundation year there, quickly moved out and got into OCAD. So OCAD is where I got my degree in design, specializing in editorial design of all things. So A little bit about the background there. I worked as a senior designer at Subplot Design out in Vancouver, and also at Hambly Wolley in Toronto. Like I said previously, spent about 8 years in Victoria, BC, and in Vancouver, running my own practice, which I called Chandler Creative Services. Didn't have a super sexy name, but it got the job done at the time. So there you go. Yeah, so maybe actually I'll speak a little bit about that, owning my own name and really kind of promoting it. There was a little bit of strategy there, and this is kind of like about me, I guess. I'm really interested in the role that design plays in business communication environments. After having spent time at studios like Subplot and Hambly Wolley, and doing a little bit of stuff on my own, I had some really great experience working with some of the brands that you see listed here. So lots of different opportunities to work on brand design, editorial, packaging, on a much bigger level than I ever could do on my own. So taking that forward, I really decided to sort of present myself to the world as this, agency experienced individual, that can provide agency level work with less bureaucracy and of course less overhead. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm going to be so busy. And I think this is actually relevant because I think a lot of students think this coming out of school or shortly after they get a little bit of experience. I mean, who wouldn't want freedom, especially in today's world? So that's definitely where my mind went. And so there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there that some of you may or may not be aware of. The good stuff, obviously, is that people love good work at a good rate. Word spreads fast. Lots of work comes in the door. Some of the bad stuff associated with that, obviously, is that people want the world for not very much money. There's lots of clients out there like that. It attracts potentially less professional clients, including people who may not value design. That's really, really important lesson to learn as you get into your careers is, if you can gravitate towards people that value the design you're putting out there, your experience will be infinitely better than it would be if you met somebody that didn't value design. Yeah, lots of work comes in, so packed schedule equals little free time, which really sort of made me question, what am I doing this for in the first place? Do I want to make a bunch of money? Do you want independence? These are all great questions that kind of pop up, and there you go. So I guess before I go any further into my experiences in independent, I might just kind of back up a little bit and talk about how self-promotion played a role in getting me into those studios that I mentioned. So it all started really at Kwantlen, but Kwantlen was really sort of like this introduction. So OCAD was the stage of my learning in design that really introduced me to my professors that were, working professionally in the industry, and really were my sort of like first line of connection to the professional world. I really, it's just, when I think back, it's astonishing to think about how many people don't take advantage of those relationships. It's easy to kind of just show up in class and not forge those relationships, but there's a lot available to students at school beyond just the regular education. And I actually found a mentor through one of my professors, and it just had a huge impact on how my career played out. So yeah, I guess my first piece of advice around self-promotion is to use the living daylights out of your professors. Because ultimately, as soon as you get into the profession, I use the word use lightly. I mean, obviously you're going to be getting paid, for your work, but really, you're a great resource. You're coming out of school, you're keen, you have, all this stuff going for you. So, and really, if you think about the studio structure, it is, creative director, design, art director, senior designers that are utilizing young, talented designers to run the studio and produce projects. So make sure you get some out of them before they get it out of you. And I guess one of the main ways to do that also is to get noticed. So I really feel that when you're still in school, you kind of have this like magic ticket to, you know, open up any door of any studio, talk to any, you know, creative director or anybody in the industry. There's almost this sort of unspoken rule where, you know, anybody's really going to want to, you know, help you because you're a student, you're fresh out of school. As soon as you graduate, there's this sort of thing. I mean, people still want to help you, but there's this sort of, there's a bit of a change because all of a sudden, you know, you've graduated. It's a little bit trickier to get through the door. You can still do it, but anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, you know, it's really valuable to utilize your student status to, you know, meet people, you know, set up new relationships, and meet those people that are going to be hiring if, in fact, it is a studio you want to work for, or if you're, you know, wanting to go out on your own to, you know, set up those relationships with clients or whoever you can meet. One way we did this way back in the day when I was still at school was to set up our own show. So outside of the grad show, we actually set up a second show that focused on editorial designers. We got a beer sponsor. We got the school to lend us like one of the rooms, and we created a bunch of flyers and used the networks that we had through a lot of our professors to invite art directors and studio heads from the city to come down and check us out. And all of a sudden we had this like room full of our work. We had all these, you know, prospective, you know, future bosses marching around the room with a beer in their hand. And it was this great opportunity for us to get out there and shake hands, introduce ourselves, and really get known. So obviously there's lots of ways to do that, but I implore you to get innovative when trying to figure out how to get noticed and get in front of people. So coming out of school, you know, again, back in the day when I graduated, mid 2000s, I wanted to really work at Hambly Wolley. I was like such a fan of the studio, still am, still got lots of great connections there and love those guys dearly. You know, hope isn't everything in life, because when I graduated, there was nothing available at Hambly Wolley. They were a small studio, and I mean, I think everybody that I knew wanted to work there. So my reality gig was working for actually a fantastic company called Green Living Enterprises. But I think at the time I was a little bit let down, even though it was a great opportunity. My creative director there was actually one of my professors, and he was just a great mentor to me at the time. So yeah, even though I didn't get what I wanted, it was still like a really great experience, and really got me into an area where I could utilize my magazine design skills. And they actually had an ad agency as well, so I got to make some new connections there, and it was just a really positive experience. But I kept my lines of communication open. I had met Barb Wooley, who recently retired actually from Hambly Wolley, at the editorial show that we had thrown at the school. I had met Dominic, who continues to be a dear friend of mine. He's obviously a really social guy and has possibly even taught some of you guys at OCAD. Anyway, lo and behold, an opportunity came up at Hambly Wolley. I got in there, got my job, and was just so happy. But you know, had I not kept in touch with those people and just really kind of kept the line of communication alive, instead of sort of checking in once and letting the signal go cold, I don't actually think that this ever would have panned out. So yeah, keeping the lines of communication open, super duper important. Due to a whole bunch of life changes, which I won't bore you with, but it basically involved love and, you know, required me to move across the country. My next reality gig was working at Mountain Equipment Co-op. You can tell I'm using the old logo here because this is the logo that was available when I was working for them. But again, this job came through a recommendation from a friend who had worked here previously, and it's just, you know, people say nepotism, you know, reigns supreme. Not always, but often, you know, getting your foot in the door through a connection is just really, really important. And the more you can grow your network, grow those connections, you know, really, really can pay off and help your lifestyle, your professional lifestyle. So After 1 year at MEC, I came back on a contract. I ended up moving to Japan. The person that I had come back to British Columbia to spend my life with, who I'm still married to, by the way, was also studying at the time and decided to do a study abroad in Japan. And having had just moved across the country for this person, I decided, hey, what the heck? And they said, well, why don't you come with? And so we ended up moving to Japan for about 6 months. And I thought, no problem. This will be the first foray into cultivating my own clients, being an independent and really going for it. I still had a bunch of connections in Toronto, a bunch of connections in Vancouver. I can totally do this. The reality of the situation was that I did get a little bit of work and made some really interesting connections in Japan, but almost ran out of cash by the end of the 6 months. And came back to the coast, back to British Columbia, and thought, you know, okay, I'm back. I'm going to leverage all of this amazing work that I've done at studios, you know, at MEC on my own. I've got my background in editorial design. I'm like the super hotshot designer. I'm going to get these fantastic clients. So I put together this little promo that I'm showing you guys here on the screen, and handed it out to all these places, tourism companies, because I'd done, you know, magazine design for Toronto Tourism and all kinds of like branding projects for photographers and all this stuff, and spent like probably what little money I had left on printing out these like beautiful introduction documents, and literally got zero, nothing. Nobody called me, and upon reflection, I realized, you know, this is the first time ever where I just went out on my own. I didn't rely on anybody else. I didn't like call in any favors. I didn't check in with my network and see what opportunities were out there. I just went out and thought, hey, you know, I can do this, and I failed miserably. So I thought this was a really valuable thing to share with you. Because it was really valuable for me. So started looking around and thought, okay, well, I've had good experiences working for studios. Maybe I can get back in there and it'll help sort of immerse me into my network. So looked around Vancouver, really loved the work that Subplot was doing at the time, and tried approaching them, but also realized that, again, they're a tiny studio of four or five people. So I created this promo. I'm actually showing the flat versions of it here, but it folded down into this really cool poster that had some of my work on the right, and then this like typographic composition that I created on the left that just sort of spoke a little bit about me and some of my experience. And I printed 250 of these things. I knew I wanted to print it litho because I wanted that gray side to be printed metallic, and then the other side I could only afford one color. And the minimum order I could print litho was 250 with this with Generation at the time in Vancouver. I delivered 25 of them, and I got one phone call, and lo and behold, as you know, I already spoiled it early on in the presentation. Subplot called me back, hooray! And I had 2 really excellent years there. I got to work on some fantastic projects that I never would have had a chance to work on had I been out on my own. We did stamps for Canada Post, rebranded pet food companies, worked for Johnson & Johnson on global packaging audits and all kinds of really great stuff. But again, after having spent a couple of years with the great guys at Subplot, started, you know, thinking, hey, you know, maybe I can do this on my own. It's like you never learn, right? Or at least I never learned. So this time, though, I thought back to, you know, I don't want to make the same mistakes. And so this really weird like collage you're looking at right here, this is a picture of Donna Braggins, who was a professor of mine at OCAD. At the time of my graduation, she was the creative director of Maclean's magazine. And today she's the, I believe, the associate dean at Sheridan. Anyway, Donna was my mentor through OCAD and into the early stages of my professional career. And one of the things she said to me was that you are your network. And at first I didn't really know what she meant by that, but you know, what I quickly learned through some of the mistakes that I've shared with you today is that like leaning on your network is really everything as far as, you know, successes in your career. And I wanted to break that down a little bit for you guys. So your network is, you know, colleagues, professors, professionals, you know, family, friends. Don't want to lean on the family too hard, you know, because what do they say? Family will, make you bankrupt. But, friends of friends, classmates, service providers, or people you have yet to meet. So, that last one is actually really, really super duper important because, you're at a stage in your life right now where you're going to meet a lot of really interesting people. And so one of the big things, I think, it's when you're coming out of school, it's really easy to think, oh man, like, who can I talk to that's going to get me ahead? And, there are people out there that are really going to want to help you and get you out there. But what I actually recommend is a bit of a flip in your state of mind. And when you meet somebody interesting, it's important to remember that you as a person, you have talent, you have a network that's growing because you've got your colleagues, you guys are, the next generation coming out of school, you understand, future trends, all that kind of stuff. But, so you have a lot to offer. And if you switch it in your brain and you think, what can I do for this person? Instead of what can they do for me, you will find quickly that it will come back to help you in spades. And so, yeah, that's something I've found. The more you sort of put it out there and push towards, trying to bring your, your skills and your abilities to the table, people will actually, just instinctively want to help you, and it just becomes this really great network. So just put it out there. And yeah, again, just another little comment about, everything that you guys have at this stage that you may or may not realize that you have, to employers and creative directors, you can expand the studio's network, you can bring in new talent. One of the things that, even though I was like a bit of a mature student when I was at OCAD, a lot of my friends and colleagues in Toronto were commercial photographers, illustrators, and stuff like that. And as a result, when I was working for those studios, I actually got to hire a lot of my friends because they were, kicking butt in their respective fields, and they were young emerging photographers and illustrators that the studios didn't really have connections to because the old creative directors were, using their buddies who were in their age generation, So, bringing that fresh perspective is something that you guys can really bring to the table. And same goes for prospective clients. Can be a great source of referrals, bring greater service offering, et cetera, et cetera. This is a weird little anecdote. So when way back at the beginning, when I left NEC, got back from Japan and learned the hard lessons and then went out on my own, I sent out this really corny looking e-newsletter to kind of like introduce myself. Hey, I'm open for business. This is who I am. This is what I've done and this is what I can do for you. And I just wanted to show this to you because I learned another really important lesson here, which was don't give up on the first try. I sent this out. I got everything you would expect, well wishers. Oh yeah, good for you, Ross. Good job. Love the new website, whatever. But it wasn't the answers I was looking for. What I was looking for was, hey, that's great. You know what? We have this project for you. And so I followed it up with another couple of emails. I phoned some people that I really wanted to get those specific answers from in my network. And through that process, ended up actually landing my first client, which was VGH UBC Hospital Foundation. And they ended up paying me, I think at the time, 65 grand in my first year, just doing design work, engagement materials. We did a couple of fundraising campaigns and stuff like that. So it was really just gave my career a boost. And yeah, all you really need is one breakthrough like that to get going. One more comment on that is that almost the most important part is to tell people what you were doing and what sort of work you were looking for. Can't stress this enough. I feel like, when you tell people you're a designer, all of these preconceptions around like what a designer is, what a designer does comes up in their brain. And design today, as you guys know, is super diverse. There's so many different types of design out there, so many different styles, so many different ways that you can approach design, that the last thing you want is people assuming that they know what you do. Because if they don't know exactly what you're looking for, they won't be able to refer you in a way that is going to work for you and get you the right kinds of jobs. So that's super important. So kind of moving up into present day, I now live in Victoria, BC, just off the coast of Vancouver, on a large island, but we're on the very south tip. So new city, new network, new opportunities. first thing I did when I moved here was look for my community, and obviously RGD is not local, but they're nationwide, and can't say enough about the good folks at RGD. Have just been really, really great in helping me build my network and get me exposure and stuff like that, which is why I love volunteering for RGD. And on the left there is actually a picture of a co-working space that I found. It didn't originally look like that when I moved out here. I found them in like a beta space that was really grungy, and they actually became a client of mine, and I helped them build visual identity for their company, and they have since moved into this new space. And I spent 2 years at Quench, that's what it's called. Didn't love the name, but there you go. And ended up actually getting clients there, meeting other companies, meeting other designers, meeting other service providers, and just compounding the network like in a major, major, major way. It was actually the springboard to moving us into the office that we're in today, where I actually met my partners here. So our office currently offers graphic design, architecture, and interior design, and 3D design. So a couple final comments for you here. Commit to your industry, to your community, and become an active participant as much as you are comfortable doing. Do your best to find the good, seek out the good people, and find out what you can do to help them. It will come back to you in spades. Keep it positive. Don't be put off by the haters. They're out there. You probably already met some of them. They're not very fun. If you are in a relationship or in a situation with somebody that you're trying to get ahead in your profession, and you come out of those conversations, those meetings, feeling drained and unhappy, get the heck out of there and find some people that are positive and that are moving in the direction you want to move in. The more you can do that, the better you'll be off. It took me a long time to learn this in my life, and it's such an important lesson. So there it is. This philosophy has connected me with great people that have either referred projects to me or helped me get out in other ways. So, and never stop learning. I think the last couple slides here are just a few books that I've read over the years that have really, really helped me. This book is actually no longer in print. Emily Cohen is amazing. You may have seen her speak at Design Thinkers. I think her book's still available in digital format, but this is just a really great one to give you a sense of how the business side of the design industry works. This one has been out there forever. Design is a job. One of the things that Mike Monteiro speaks about is how 85% of work comes from referrals, just tapping back into this whole idea of the importance of your network. And this one, some people really know this book, others don't. Can't say enough about it. David Aries, an Irish independent designer. Haven't actually checked in on him in a long time, but I ordered this book. It's like print to order through Amazon or something like that. And it's just like every single thing that has happened to me in my design career, he speaks about in this book. And it was just such a great learning opportunity. So recommend that one. And that's me. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat to you today. I hope you enjoyed my talk and found it fruitful.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you so much, Ross. It was great to hear about all your path to become a designer. We all are going to graduate at some point and, sharing your experience really helped. And this is us making connections. So I'm so happy to be here with this network. So now we have time to ask questions. Anybody has questions for Ross? Who wants to go first? Oh, Rupsha's hand is up.
Yeah, I meant to click the applause button, but I have a question anyways. First of all, Ross, thank you so much for giving up some of your time this evening to come talk to us. Your presentation is great. My question is all about balancing self-promotion, but also imposter syndrome, which is something I'm personally struggling with as I get closer to graduating and writing cover letters and whatnot. How do you balance speaking to your strengths when you feel like you don't really have them as a student going out into the workplace?
It's a great question. Imposter syndrome never goes away. at least in my experience. So I just want to throw that out there. I think that another thing to remember is that, you know, when you're leaving school and you're writing those letters and getting out there, you know, people understand that you're a student, you know, and so there's a certain expectation, you know, as a studio owner, you know, I am aware, I mean, I'm looking for talent, obviously, but I'm also aware of the fact that a huge amount of learning happens in the studio. And so when you're bringing somebody in, there, at least for me, there's an expectation that that's going to happen. And so I think, you know, something that I think is important to kind of maybe, you know, do away with imposter syndrome, or at least to sort of like, you know, focus on the work and kind of get yourself out there, is to, you know, create as much as you can, experiment as much as you can right now, and try to, you know, if you don't have work in your portfolio from school and you feel that you want to sort of expand into certain areas or try things, you know, to show work, it kind of gets back to that, like that magic moment that I was talking about, where you're like, you know, about to graduate, or like you're a recent graduate. People are really like forgiving in that most people are really forgiving, I'll say, you know, with recent graduates. And, you know, I think one of the most important things you can do is like show enthusiasm. You know, you have, you know, it's great to be able to show, you know, polished work, so you can say, hey, like, I'm capable of this, but, you know, I'm really passionate about this, and lean into your strengths and your passions. And if you do that, then, you know, the imposter syndrome won't matter, because, you know, we're all, it's like the name of our company, becoming, you know, we're in a constant state of becoming. I think Bob Dylan said that. As long as you can stay in that area, you kind of be okay, you know. So that's our philosophy, is that, you know, you don't have to be like this, you know, because we're in a constant state of evolving and improving ourselves.
Great, thank you so much.
Madeline, do you want to go?
Yeah. So my question, you obviously focused a lot on networking and building your support system, but as we all know, COVID's a massive thing now. So how have you adjusted like the ways that you meet people and connect online in this new like work and school role that we're facing over Zoom calls like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't necessarily have the answer. I can tell you what I've been doing, which is I've been using LinkedIn, actually, to connect with people. I haven't done this so much with clients, but with like suppliers and illustrators that I really love and miss working with, or whatever, just because we haven't had maybe a certain kind of project. I'll just send people emails and say, hey, how's it going? Like, you know, I miss you. Haven't talked to you in a while. You know, this is what we've been up to. What are you doing? And I don't know, email is kind of old school, but, you know, I don't know. I'm also like old school. So there you go. Yeah, what else? Yeah, I don't know. That's what we've been doing. I want to like see if I can offer any more here. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I think just, you know, trying to utilize the tools that are available to you to reach out and connect with people. I've actually been very surprised. You know, I've reached out to some new client prospects over LinkedIn, just to say, hey, you know, this is the kind of work we do. You know, are you interested in learning more about our studio? And, you know, maybe there's a couple of really sort of loose connections there, but often people have been quite quick to respond and with positivity. So.
That's great. Yeah, it's definitely very hard to communicate, but we have a great student committee Discord channel that we're connecting with everyone, and also we have a Slack channel, which is great. We have Jenna. Do you have a question?
Hi, I had a question about, as I get more comfortable with networking, I find it uncomfortable to reach out more than once, and doing this thing in my mind where I should save the opportunity to talk to people for like a really dire situation. And I wanted to know, is this a realistic thought? Like, should I be saving people for a certain moment, or reach out as much as I need to?
Yeah, it's a good question. My philosophy is that if you can find a reason to connect with people, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be like this humongous thing. You know, you don't have to, you know, I know what you mean. Like I do it, we all do it. You know, you build it up and it's like, oh, you know, I was just talking to my business development partner today about this. It's like, oh, you know, I'll put off, you know, reaching out to somebody because I see it as this huge thing, or I'm waiting for the right opportunity. And then I realize, oh, the opportunity's gone. So I just won't do it, you know? And I think it's like really important to kind of, I don't know, just sort of remove the pressure a little bit and just think, you know, if your goal is to kind of create like sustained communication, excuse me, then, you know, finding sort of smaller, like less high priority ways to keep that communication line open, I think is a good way. And you can kind of be strategic and like maybe work up to a big ask or something like that. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Roxanne, do you want to go?
Yes, please. Also, thank you for coming and speaking tonight. It was really interesting to hear your story and how you got to where you are. I have a question, just more or less pertaining to how to, it kind of ties into Rupsha's question a little bit, but it's about more or less of like how to kind of not be like, because with COVID, like networking is not as easy, but how do you kind of push yourself like to put your work out there? You know what I mean? Just kind of like put like, I don't know how to word this, but like break that barrier of like, hello world,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. I think that as students, one of the most valuable things you can do is really try and like foster those relationships with your professors. You know, they not only do they have connections to you know, to the like the, I don't want to call it the real world, but the job world. So they're going to know, you know, they might be friends with people that are hiring, or they also might know, you know, might be able to give you insights based on the type of work that you do or areas that you excel in, and say, hey, you know, like you could just you know, continue those dialogues with your professors and say, hey, you know, like this is kind of what I'm interested in, you know, this is what I'm thinking, like come to them with some ideas and sort of see, you know, what they think. And then, you know, a logical next question might be, hey, like, you know, is there anybody you think you could put me in touch with? A great way to break the barrier is to set up something called an informational interview, where there's really like, it's kind of one of those golden things you can do even after you've graduated, where, you know, there's no expectation that there's going to be a job. All you're doing is asking for their professional opinion, and it's an opportunity to kind of open up a dialogue with somebody. Actually have seen informational interviews that where the relationship is maintained over a period of time turn into to real jobs and stuff like that. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Kevin?
Great, thanks, Yas. Ross, thank you so much for your presentation. Just like everyone else, it was really informative, and you shared a lot of great information about your journey. I'm actually really curious about, you had mentioned using art materials at the core of some design, and I'm just so curious as to maybe what that would look like, or if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about how that could work. I have a fine art background, and I love the idea of maybe combining the two. And so yeah, I'm just so curious if you don't mind sharing.
yeah, of course. I mean, it doesn't always work. It's really project dependent. So maybe I'll use the Student Awards identity as an example. You can actually probably view it on the RGD website right now. I think they're starting to promote it a little bit. But with that one, so we didn't have to use spray paint. We had actually like created these like spray textures as like a support graphic, and really just wanted to deliver like a very simple but effective, scalable brand for the Student Awards. And so we did a lot of the like spray texture using Procreate. But then, you know, realized that, you know, we could probably get like a more authentic look from doing it in real life. And I mean, it's like really fun to get like paint on your hands and stuff like that. So even though RGD had like approved the identity, we were doing it for free, pro bono anyway. I mean, exchanges of, certain things. But yeah, we were like, went out the back lane behind the studio, busted up spray cans, like did a whole bunch of stuff. And it actually turned out really, really well. And we were happy with the results. So, we, some of the work we do is we do beer like packaging for a brewery out here. And one of their sort of like the essence of their brand is that they are like very authentic. They work with artists and stuff like that. And so we've actually done like a painting of like Tom Thompson inspired like painting style, for one of their beer brands, which they really love. So yeah, anytime we have the opportunity, it doesn't always present itself, but yeah, there is, having said that, I can actually speak to the beer brand a little bit, because it's still art in an applied design context. So like before we did the painting, we sold the client by showing them similar painting styles. And then we did like a mock-up collage using photography to get the layout and the composition. There was a canoe in there. It's very Canadiana. And so we actually like got the positioning of the canoe figured out using 3D software and all that kind of stuff, got the client to sign off on it, and then went and painted it. So, and then there was like room for like the beer logo above the canoe and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely not, pure art. There's definitely an applied design aspect to it, but yeah, there, if you're motivated, you can find ways to work fine art into your work.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, we have Kendra, and it's the last question. So, go.
Thank you. So, Ross, when you were talking about the good and the bad of freelancing, you mentioned that pricing and positioning can help like strike that balance. I'm just curious, like, how did you find like the right balance there, and like what did that look like for you trying to find that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Maybe not so easy to answer. I think that one of the most valuable lessons I learned at that time in my career was really to learn more about people and connecting with people and sort of learning, because people don't come out and say, hey, I'm this kind of person, like you have to kind of find out who people are by like having a relationship with them, a professional relationship in this case. And so yeah, like finding I guess cues in communication that told me whether or not they value design, or is this just going to be, are they looking for a button pusher, they have an idea in their mind what they want, and they just want somebody, who knows how to use the software, so you have to kind of make decisions like, what do I want to be doing? Do I want to be working for people that tell me what to do? Do I want to, be the kind of designer that, is able to provide some creative leadership? And, it's tricky when you first graduate. This is why I actually personally recommend, this is not right for everybody, but I recommend for certain people to actually get studio experience if you can, or, get experience working for someone else. You can make mistakes on their dime. You can learn about those types of, personality traits, and you can also gain experience and confidence that will then allow you to, show up and be that kind of designer that can kind of, lead clients in the right way, and you can deal with people who, maybe because of their lack of experience, just want to tell you what to do because that's how they're used to, running a project or whatever. But really, what they need is someone who can lead them, But as a brand new student, a recent graduate, often it's hard to do that, right? So. Yeah, it's all, again, it's part of becoming a better designer every day and just trying to improve.
Thank you.
Oh,
welcome.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ross. It was a pleasure to have you. It was such an inspiring presentation, and answering the questions was great.